Everyone in Elmsworth knew Mara, the girl with the sun in her smile and secrets in her eyes. So when her body was found beneath a flickering street lamp, clutching a red ribbon and surrounded by silence, the town didn't just lose a life. It uncovered a nightmare years in the making. The rain hadn't stopped for hours, but that didn't keep the crowd from gathering near the narrow, cobbled street where it had all happened. Yellow tape fluttered in the wind, an eerie whisper of the horror that unfolded just the night before. No one in the quiet town of Elmsworth could have predicted that the girl who lit up every room would be found lifeless under the flickering glow of the old street lamp. She was known simply as Mara. 18, radiant, and full of life, Mara wasn't just a local favorite, she was everyone's favorite. The baker kept her favorite pastries warm each morning. The old librarian saved rare poetry books just for her. And the children? They followed her like shadows, laughing and running behind her down the lanes. She was a light in a town that rarely saw sunshine. That's why the world stopped when the news broke. Detective Rowan had seen his fair share of crime scenes. But this one not at him. The angle of her body, the single red ribbon clutched in her hand, the cryptic message scrawled beside her in ash. She saw too much. None of it made sense. There was no forced entry, no signs of struggle. It was as if she simply collapsed into death's arms. The investigation spiraled quickly. Everyone had an opinion, and everyone had a secret. Her best friend, Lila, stopped speaking. The shopkeeper down the road closed his store and vanished. And the mayor? He suddenly announced a trip abroad, indefinitely. But the deeper Detective Rowan dug, the more tangled the web became. Who was Mara really? Why did her private journal have entire pages ripped out? And why, when Rowan tried to access her last phone call, was the record wiped clean? What began as a murder case was unraveling into something far bigger. Something that would soon pull the entire town, and possibly the world, into its grip. Rowan stood over the open journal, its torn pages a silent scream in the otherwise quiet precinct. He traced the rough edges with his thumb, his mind spinning with possibilities. Someone had wanted those words gone badly enough to kill for them. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the corkboard plastered with photographs, notes, and strings connecting dots that still refused to align. In the center, Mara's face smiled back at him, forever frozen in that last school photo, her eyes hiding something he was just beginning to see. The knock on his office door broke his trance. Officer Keene poked his head in, his face pale. "Sir, we've got something." Rowan followed him down the hallway into the forensics lab. A young tech nodded toward the screen. "We ran a UV scan over Mara's bedroom walls," she said. "You need to see this." She clicked a few buttons and the image changed. Under the purple glow, words appeared scrawled on the wallpaper, like they'd been written in invisible ink. "He watches from a house with no windows." Rowan's blood ran cold. That house, locals called it the Silent House, stood on the edge of Elmsworth's woods. Abandoned for decades, or so they thought. Kids dared each other to approach it, but no one ever stayed long. The stories around it were just that, stories. Until now. Rowan grabbed his coat. I want eyes on that house. Now. Drones, dogs, whatever you can get. And bring me Lila. Keene raised an eyebrow. "You think she's involved?" "I think she knows more than she's saying," Rowan muttered. That evening, as the sun dipped behind black clouds, Rowan sat across from Lila in the dim interview room. She looked worn, eyes red, hands trembling. "I told her not to go," she whispered. "I told Mara that house wasn't just a story." Rowan leaned in. "Why did she go, Lila? What was she looking for?" Lila's eyes filled with tears, and when she looked up, her voice barely rose above a breath. "She wasn't looking for something," she said. "She was meeting someone." Rowan's heart skipped a beat. He leaned forward, his voice tight. "Who was she meeting, Lila?" Lila shook her head, eyes darting to the corners of the room like the walls themselves might close in. I don't know his name. She never told me. Just that he found her. Online first. Said he knew things about her past, about her real parents. That stopped Rowan cold. Mara had been adopted, that much he knew. but her records were sealed, her past brushed under the rug by a family that claimed it was better not to dwell. Now, that very past had returned like a ghost in the night. She changed after she started talking to him. Lila went on, voice cracking. She was scared, but also curious. Like she had to know. The last night I saw her, she said she was going to get answers. That he promised her the truth, but only if she came alone. Rowan clenched his jaw. And she went to that house? Lila nodded. Outside, the storm had started again. Soft at first, then heavy, like the sky itself was mourning. Rowan stood, a sick weight forming in his gut. You should have told someone, Lila. I thought I could protect her, she whispered. But I was too late. By the time Rowan reached the silent house, the woods had swallowed what little daylight remained. The house stood like a wound in the earth, blackened, windowless, forgotten. Officers flanked the perimeter. Drones buzzed overhead, but no one dared step inside without Rowan. He pushed the door open. The air was thick with rot and dust, but something else lingered, something colder. The floor creaked beneath his feet as he moved through the darkness, flashlights slicing through the cobwebs. Symbols lined the walls, etched into the plaster, carved deep with trembling hands. Circles.
Eyes. Names.
And then a noise.
Soft.
Almost a whisper. Rowan followed it down into the basement. Each step felt like a heartbeat, heavy and slow. At the bottom, in the flicker of his beam, he saw a chair. Shackles. Dried blood. A camera mounted in the corner, red light blinking. Someone had been watching. Then he saw it on the wall behind the chair, scratched over and over until the wood splintered. Rowan's breath caught in his throat. He took a cautious step closer, heart pounding like war drums in his chest. The message on the wall wasn't a warning, it was a confession. The kind that reeked of obsession, of ritual, of something darker than he'd dared imagine. There were more before her. How many? How far back did this go? And why had no one noticed? He turned back toward the stairs, his instinct screaming now, every shadow a potential threat. This wasn't just a murder. It was part of a pattern. A cycle. Someone had been doing this long before Mara. And they were still out there. Back upstairs, Officer Keene met him with wide eyes. Sir, you need to hear this. He held out a phone. Its screen paused on a video clip retrieved from the basement camera. Rowan hit play. The footage was grainy, time-stamped 4 days before Mara's body was found. She was there, in the chair, alive. Eyes wide, lips trembling, bound at the wrists. A man's voice came from off-screen.
Calm. Deceptively kind.
You wanted the truth, Mara. I'm giving it to you. You weren't supposed to be found. Not yet. Rowan's jaw clenched as the video cut to black. Keene exhaled shakily. Facial recognition couldn't match the voice, but we're running it through deep audio analysis. Rowan barely heard him. His mind was already racing ahead. If Mara wasn't the first, maybe she hadn't been the last either. Run all missing person reports from the last 10 years. Focus on young women, same age range, similar profiles. Especially anyone with adoption records or sealed files. Keene nodded and rushed off. Rowan stared at the house one last time before stepping into the night. The rain soaked through his coat, but he didn't feel it. He was already thinking of Mara's last words to her friend.
She was meeting someone.
Someone who promised answers. And someone who had done this before. Whoever he wasn't just a killer. 3 weeks later, the truth was no longer a whisper hiding in shadows. It was a scream echoing across headlines worldwide. Detective Rowan stood at the edge of Elmsworth Cemetery, the autumn wind brushing dead leaves against his coat. A small crowd gathered around Mara's headstone, flowers tucked gently at its base. Lila stood among them, holding Mara's favorite ribbon in her hand, red, like the one they found clutched in her fist that night. This time, though, it was clean, peaceful. The case had broken wide open. The man behind it all, Dr. Elias Barn, had been a psychologist once respected, known for treating youth with traumatic backgrounds. Behind that polished veneer was a mind unraveling quietly, brilliantly, dangerously. His obsession began decades ago, a twisted project to find patterns in grief, fear, and identity. He had targeted young women adopted into new lives, girls with missing pasts, because he believed that made them easier to shape, easier to break. But Mara had fought back. That night in the silent house, she'd left more than fear behind. She scratched symbols and words into the walls with her fingernails, left hair in duct-taped corners, even whispered her name and location when she heard the camera turn off. She had known, somehow, that if she couldn't survive, she could still lead them to him. And she had. With the help of a deep forensic dive, audio mapping, and a tip from one of Varn's former patients, the trail led to a hidden property in the northern woods. There, they found the rest, files, photos, and heartbreaking evidence of the others who came before. In all, 5 girls. Only Mara's case made it to daylight. The others were buried by silence, by fear, by carefully wiped records and scared families who'd been told to move on. But now the truth was out. The world knew, and the silence was broken. Varn had fled, of course. A final act of cowardice. But they found him 2 nights later on a ferry bound for Norway, face hidden under a false passport and a hat too small for his guilt. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. He just stared at Rowan as if, even now, he still believed he was the smarter man. He wasn't. At the cemetery, Rowan stayed behind after the others left. The sky was clear now. Cold, but clear. He knelt by Mara's grave, placing a single photo beside the flowers, a shot of her at the library, laughing mid-turn, like she had no idea someone was even taking the picture. "I'm sorry we were too late," he murmured. A breeze stirred the trees. And maybe it was his imagination, or maybe it was something more, but for a moment, it felt like the wind carried her voice. "You weren't." Rowan stood slowly, took one last look, and walked away. The world had broken when she died. But because of her, it had started to heal.